Sonic the Hedgehog. A video game series that's been running since the 90s, it's now become one of the most iconic franchises in the world, with Sonic becoming one of the top 3 video game characters of all time, right up there with Mario and Link. This fame has only grown with the inclusion of other forms of media, such as comics and TV shows, and most recently, a live-action movie franchise. It might have gotten off to a shaky, or rather ugly start, but now it's ingrained in the hearts of Sonic fans around the world. But the people at Paramount decided that fans shouldn't have to wait another 2 years for more live-action Sonic content, and so decided to give us a live-action streaming miniseries starring the recently introduced alien warrior, Knuckles. When this show was first announced, I was really excited. I've loved the Sonic franchise since I was a kid, and have kept up to date with most of the franchise's newest releases, including the movies. And with this series being described as a bridge between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, I was expecting something grand. My expectations were a little shot when I heard what the show would be about: Knuckles training Wade, a minor character from the first 2 movies, in the ways of the Echidna warrior. Not exactly what I imagined for a Knuckles series, but I held out hope that it could be good. Then the first trailer dropped, and my expectations sank even more. While we did learn about plot points such as the buyer, it also gave us a lot of the elements that made the first Sonic movie a little boring. But again, I held out hope. Now the full series has been released, and after a quick pirated watching session, I've seen the whole thing. So does it serve as a bridge between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3? Does it show Knuckles training Wade in the ways of the Echidna? And most importantly, is it good? Well, the answers to that are no, kinda, and it's complicated. I guess I should explain further about what I mean by this. So let's go over what the show's about, then I'll describe what I liked about the show, what I didn't like about it, and finally my overall thoughts. Let's start with the summary. What's the show about? The series takes place after the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Knuckles is now living at the Wachowski house with Sonic and Tails, after forming a pact with them to protect the Master Emerald. However, he's struggling to adapt to the more relaxed environment of Green Hill. The ghost of his former tribe leader tells him he needs to train Wade Whipple in the ways of the Echidna warrior. Wade, who wants to participate in a bowling tournament in Reno, agrees to be trained by Knuckles, and they set off to Reno. Along the way, Wade works to show that he's not a weakling/loser that everyone says he is, while at the same time working through family issues like a mother he hasn't seen, an annoying sister that bullies him, and a dad that abandoned the family years ago. At the same time, 2 former gun agents are tasked by an individual known as the Buyer with capturing Knuckles so he can use his power to make weapons. Now that we know what the show's about, let's talk about the good. One of the best things about this show are the callbacks to the games. Even if you're someone like me who hasn't played all the games, seen all the shows, or read all the comics, there's still plenty in here for you to recognize. Having Knuckles' backstory shown in a style that reflects the older games, the sign at the end of his obstacle course from the end of the original game's levels, Knuckles' hat from the Sonic OVA movie. Even things like Iblis and the Flames of Disaster from the horror that was Sonic 06. As to be expected with this series, all the characters are well written, at least for what kind of show this is. Knuckles is still the alien outsider who doesn't get a lot of Earth's culture. Wade is still a goofy screw-up that tries to do good. Even the new characters have a lot of energy to them, and even have a few good quotes.
You think you can take my power? Do I look like I need your power?
What are you talking about? Of course we need his power.
Not surprisingly, the animation on characters like Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails look great. Apparently the animation was done in-house by Paramount, rather than using Sega's Marza animation planet like the first 2 movies, and the same will be done for Sonic 3. But besides some shots having Sonic and Knuckles being less spiky than normal, the animation is clean and blends well with the live action. The music chosen for the show fits the vibes they're going for, and the inclusion of classic themes and music cues from the games is a nice touch. Though I would have liked to see more classic themes return than the ones we got. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what the show got wrong. If you recall the plot summary I talked about earlier, you might have noticed something about the story. What was it? It's the fact that Knuckles, the title character, isn't even the main character of the show. Yep, the one who we all came to see as a side character in his own show. Instead, the focus is on Wade, and his journey to become stronger, take part in a bowling tournament, and deal with his repressed family issues, with a side plot about Knuckles dealing with someone who wants his power. I don't think this is what any of us wanted to see when we heard about this show. We wanted a Knuckles show that would bridge the gap between movies, not a stupid comedy about Wade and his family. What's even more surprising is how often Knuckles actually appears in the show. I timed it out and found that Knuckles appears on screen for approximately 56 minutes throughout all 6 episodes. Now that doesn't sound too small, until you remember that the show is roughly 3 hours long. Meaning Knuckles only appears in 1/3 of his own show, which is utterly ridiculous. Episode 4 only has Knuckles appear at the beginning and end, without even contributing to the story. The show was described during pre-production as a bridge between the events of Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, giving us information that would be relevant to the movie when it came out. That, I can assure you, is a total lie. Nothing in this show sets up anything for the next movie, and if it does, it's for things that don't matter. The writers seem determined to give us information or explanations of things that we never asked for. Have you always wondered who ordered that Olive Garden gift card at the end of Sonic 1, or organized the fake wedding in Sonic 2? No? Well, the Knuckles show thinks you do.
I was the one who was neutralized. Taken out of the field, shoved behind a desk, ordering gift cards and planning fake weddings.
Have you ever questioned who built all of Eggman's robots, weapons, and gizmos? Oh, you just logically assumed that he built them himself? Well, that's stupid. It was obviously this random guy and was never mentioned at all before now.
Wait, so you worked for Robotnik?
I did.
Want to have the burning question of what Wade's family life was like finally answered? What's that? You never gave 2 flicks about Wade since he was just a minor character? Well, too bad. You'll learn all about his somewhat stereotypical Jewish mother, his self-centered bullying sister, and his arrogant father who abandoned him. This show really should be called Wade the Series, with some Knuckles, because that's what it feels like. I don't even want to go into the quality of the writing we got, so I'll just summarize. The writing feels like it wants to be for a family audience, but is constantly brought down with jokes and dialogue that was written for a more kid-focused demographic. An uneven tone with a story we don't care about focused on a character we never cared about. It all comes together to make something that turns into a giant disappointment. So, what are my final thoughts on the show? Well, if you've read the title of this video, you probably know already. I can describe the whole Knuckles series in one word: pointless. This show has no reason for existing. It was just meant to get more Sonic content out there while working on the next movie, to keep the franchise relevant in the gap between movies, and it couldn't even do that right. There were times watching this show that I was legitimately bored and had to check things on my phone just to keep my attention span from being burned out. This whole show is like the wedding from Sonic 2, except it's the whole show. You remember how distracting, unnecessary, and boring it was? How it felt like it was interrupting the action and taking focus away from the main plot? That's what every scene with Wade and his family feels like. Maybe if this show was advertised as a Wade spin-off, then maybe I'd be less harsh on it. I might even say the show was adequate and gave us what was promised. But they knew a Wade show wouldn't sell, so they shoved in Knuckles and filled it with a few Easter eggs in order to draw people in. And I guess it worked because the show has become one of the most watched shows on Paramount+. As for the reviews, well, they're basically saying the same thing I am. Overall, this show was a pointless disappointment, and one that I'll be unlikely to glide on back to anytime soon. It's a solid 4 out of 10. But you know, all this negativity has got me thinking, what would I have done differently? If Paramount had come to me and said, create a show about Knuckles that bridges the gap between the second and third Sonic movies, what would I have done? I've given this a lot of thought as I was writing this review, and I think I've come up with a pretty good idea. Now, of course, I don't know what they'll be doing for Sonic 3, so I can't really set up things that will appear in the movie. But given how they're likely going to be adapting Sonic Adventure 2, I think there might be a few things we can guess will be in it. So, here's what I would have done if I had been tasked with making a Knuckles spin-off show. The show would start off pretty much the same as the actual show. Knuckles is now living in Green Hills at the Wachowski house with Sonic and Tails. With his mission to find the Master Emerald now over, Knuckles is finding it hard to adjust to his new peaceful life. He attempts to help protect the people of the town from danger, but it usually ends with Knuckles being reprimanded by Tom and Maddie. Wanting to help him better adjust to his new life, Wade volunteers to take him out of town to one of his favorite places to have fun. It could even still be a bowling alley. However, the alley is then attacked by a group of people wielding guns powered by a mysterious substance. Knuckles is able to defeat them, but realizes that the guns are powered by energy from the Chaos Emeralds. Thinking one of them might have fallen into the wrong hands, and seeing a chance to start a new quest, Knuckles decides to track down the one who built the weapons and recover the emerald. He starts following the trail of the weapons, first to the ones who sold them to the criminals. They lead him to the main distribution plant for the weapons, but the buyer isn't there. The trail goes cold until a pair of lackeys from the one in charge attack Knuckles, hoping to take him out and stop his pursuit. Knuckles is knocked out and finds himself in an astral plane, where he meets his parents and the chief of his tribe. They tell Knuckles that obsessing over the emerald will only lead to his demise, similar to what happened to them. Though Knuckles says he needs to finish his quest, he reflects on their words. Upon awakening, Knuckles defeats the lackeys and from them discovers the location of the man in charge. He goes to his lair, discovering a whole production line for making weapons, with the Chaos Emerald powering them. The man in charge, we'll call him Gizmo, confronts Knuckles, telling him his backstory. It could even be the same as the buyer from the show, a genius thrown out of gun for working with Eggman. But when he found the emerald, he found a way to rebuild his life and take revenge. Knuckles and Gizmo start fighting, but Knuckles is overwhelmed by the emerald-powered weapons. But before Gizmo could land the finishing blow, he is stopped by Rouge the Bat, who has been following Knuckles in the background since the bowling alley. Teaming up with Knuckles, the two work together to overpower and defeat him. But before Knuckles can claim the emerald, Rouge takes it, saying she was only sent to get info on Gizmo and his business, but has now taken an interest in the emerald. The two end up fighting, with Knuckles coming out on top and using his power to send the emerald somewhere else. Rouge leaves, but says they'll see each other again soon. We then learn that Rouge was working with Gun, and gives them all the information she had about Gizmo. She then begins using their database to learn more about the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles at first thinks he should go and find the emeralds to ensure they're protected, but recalling his parents' warning and realizing he misses Green Hill, he decides that can wait for another time. Now he understands the feeling of having a home once again, and finally begins to head back to Green Hill. Unlike the show we actually got, I feel this plot gives us a lot more to work with. It sets up the plot for Sonic 3 by introducing Rouge, a character important to the plot of Sonic Adventure 2, as well as the idea of her and Knuckles trying to find the Chaos Emeralds. It also puts the focus on Knuckles, and has the opportunity to give us a lot of action scenes, as well as emotional ones. What's more, it still keeps the plot point from the actual show of Knuckles finally accepting Earth and Green Hill as his home. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Knuckles, and what I would have done if I'd been in charge. Did you love the show and think I'm being too harsh, or were you too disappointed with the finished product? What did you think of my idea? Would you have done something different? I can't wait to hear from you down in the comments.
And so until next time, people, ta-ta and goodbye for now.